I had no idea how that would work. So thank you guys for playing our game. All right, we're going to actually do the show now. I like to, well, let me go through this again, is that this format is hard. So if you've ever given a talk in public, it's already difficult. This, with the advancement every 15 seconds, no matter what you do or where you are. So one of the things that our audiences are always great at is supporting no matter what. So just have a really strong support for our speakers. And they are going to blow you away with how amazing they're going to be. And there's all kinds of different topics. It's like someone was saying, switches like a box of chocolates, because it, how does this go? Melts in the sun, I think. I think is how it goes. So welcome to the stage, our first speaker, Erik Strock, 4 phases of stormwater management on utility scale solar.
All right. Hi, everybody. All right, so I am here to talk about utility scale solar projects, which sometimes can disturb over 1,000 acres. And that's a huge potential for rain and soil erosion. And I think that we need to start looking at those things a lot earlier in the process. So I'm going to talk about that. So there's 4 phases I'm coining right now: development, engineering, construction, and then operation. I think all 4 of these phases, we need to start talking about stormwater and erosion control and doing it really, really well. So I'm going to walk through those. Development. If you don't know, this is where we look for green fields, close to transmission lines, close to substations. I think starting this early, we need to start thinking about vegetation. We need to start thinking about stormwater and erosion control. So I'm going to talk through a couple key things. There's a lot of different things when it comes to stormwater. This is a complicated thing. Type and depth of soil. Do we have any soil here? Are we in Colorado? There's no soil. What type of vegetation is growing? Where is the drainage going currently? Let's model runoff and consider terrain. All these things go into revegetation. And I know this might be a bit much, but let's get into the field as early as possible and start figuring out what vegetation is there. Your site might look like this. It might also not look like this if you live in Colorado, if you're on the western slope. So a lot of different ways to revegetate. I'm a proponent of this. I'm an engineer, but let's start thinking about grading. Let's start thinking about the racking. There's terrain following trackers, a lot of ways to minimize disturbance of the site. The more you disturb, the more you compact, the harder it is to revegetate. So let's minimize that. Development, moving to engineering. This is where I typically live. We got to think about it here, obviously, but I'm going to say exceeding code minimum. Going more than what the code says is what we should strive for. So going to talk a little bit about that. First thing, when you space your solar panels, this is something called row gap. There's other words for it. GCR is another way to look at it. But the more you space your panels and the more you have vegetation in between, actually the more stormwater gets infiltrated. So think about that. Look at your sensitive receptors. Are you next to a wetland? Are you next to a residence? Are you next to a road? Well, maybe we should protect those areas a bit more instead of just putting like some silt fence and hoping that it works out. There's been a lot of liability here. So look at your sensitive receptors. Vegetation plans. A lot of times we just think we can, well, some people think you can go to Home Depot and buy some seeds and throw them on the ground and it's going to grow. Probably not a good idea. Really start to think about it, low growing and suited to the natural environment. You got to start thinking about this. We're moving to construction. The rubber meets the road. We've developed it. We've engineered it. Again, minimize disturbance. The more you compact, the less grows. We really got to start thinking about this, and we got to maintain our BMPs. Cost. I've had this so many times where I put a plan together and a contractor will look at me and be like, "You're crazy, man. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, you really need this. This is important." So you got to start budgeting for the cost of erosion control. It's expensive stuff. Oh, just to mention it again, minimize disturbance and compaction. You should never do this. First of all, you'd never have a jumping jack on site, but the more you compact, nothing's going to grow here. Your roots aren't going to be able to establish. No seed is going to be there. Minimize construction, drive on the roads, do what you're supposed to do. Topsoil is so important. I think we lose something like 36 billion tons of topsoil every year globally. We got to start doing a better job. Rivers should stop running brown. Lakes should stop running brown. Protect your topsoil, stockpile it well. And then finally, we can do all this like good planning, But if the developers and the engineers don't tell the contractor and they don't out talk about how to revegetate and what to do, what the heck are we doing out here? We got to talk more. I know it's hard. I know contractors don't care about people who sit in offices, but we really got to do it. Operation. Sites last for 25 years, 30 years, 40 years. We got to make sure this thing lasts for a long time. There's a guy mowing. I don't think anyone would ever mow like that. Well, we have to maintain our vegetation. We have to maintain our stormwater controls. We can close our permit when we get to 70%. So we need to be monitoring for that. We need to be looking for noxious weeds, undesired species, tests, everything else. Go out to the site, look at it. If you see something not well, maybe put some more seed down, maybe pull some noxious weeds or spray some chemicals or whatever we need to do. Additional BMPs. This is an adaption thing. I've had contractors, I don't know, do things that like, listen, the intent of the plan was for you to do this. Yeah, I might have put something there, but it's an adaptive plan. We need to be responsive. We need to like care about what we're doing out here. So we got to adapt. In conclusion, adequately model it. I'm an engineer. Let's start running some models pretty early on and figure out where this water is going. Prioritize vegetation. It needs to grow afterwards, Start thinking about it. It's more than just moving dirt. Appropriate costing, like, permanent detention, vegetation, stormwater controls, silt fence, everything costs a lot of money. Start to think about it and then adherence to plan. A lot of effort goes into this. And it's a shame to get to the site and then nothing actually gets adhered to. Thank you.
Nailed it. I love it when we get off like that. And you are done. Doesn't that feel good? Took forever just sitting there and waiting. So I have just a couple of questions. Where does the topsoil go? Into the river and just kind of become silt? All right. Why was that guy mowing? And you included him anyway? That was funny. That was really... Sure. Okay, got it. And what's an obnoxious weed? What? The weed apocalypse? Okay. Okay, I have to process that.